Aloha, and thank you for having us. Today we are going to be talking about a couple of our favorite immune-boosting tonics we like to integrate in our daily diet and how they impact our local community. For Terry and I, amongst many others, when COVID shifted into a pandemic, the essentials of life became very apparent, like having community, clean water, kind food for the family, safe shelter, and readily available medicine. We quickly learned and faced the harsh reality that on average today, Hawaii imports 85 to 90% of all goods. And with a high demand of surplus and new guidelines being put in place, barge ships were not showing up, and the ones that did were so overpacked that we had containers fall off into our bay. They were stacked so high. We had guys literally going out with canoes and kayaks trying to rescue the bananas. So with that, stores were also all boarding up their windows and doors, and the stores that were open were all out of stock. Doctors and communities became a place discouraged to go to. Ultimately, we witnessed a lot of fear uprise in our community and wanted to get to the roots of where and why it's coming from and brainstorming solutions. After doing some research, we learned that Hawaii, the most isolated population in the world, was once fully self-sustainable and generated so much abundance they could fill any ship that passed by. They did this by integrating agriculture social-economic systems, where like a pie, the land was divided into sections known as an ahupua'a. These wedge-shaped parcels followed the natural boundaries of the watershed, running from the uplands, Mauka, to the sea, Makai, side. And within each section contained all the resources the human community needed, and specialized knowledge that together all needs were able to be met throughout the land. We wondered what happened to these systems and how we can learn and reintegrate these ways into our life on the island. As we were forced to get creative, we started seeking the natural abundance within and outside of our community. And through this, we found many farms generating an ample amount of excess resources they just didn't know what to do with, or didn't have the help to quite maintain it. We also encountered many communities and folk who wanted to be of service, but didn't have the resources or know where to go, and realizing that ultimately we all shared a similar passion and desire to share an abundance of kind medicine and empower ourselves, therefore empowering the community to self-sustain oneself. During this time, I was working on a 1,000-acre cacao farm, and with an impact from COVID, our production was exceeding our sales, and we were left with generous amounts of cacao powder full of nutrients we were unable to utilize. For Terry and I, this is where the gears really started to get going. Cacao powder was something we had an incredible abundance of, and able to be easily shared as a little bit goes a long way, and can be easily prepared. Having our sweet tooth covered, we wanted to have something a bit more savory, and realized that as lucky we are to have cacao growing in our backyards, we wanted something that was more tangible of a model to demonstrate how an ahupua'a, small or big scale, can positively impact our life and provide a recipe no matter where you are in the world, any kitchen can enjoy, which led us to fire cider, where every ingredient we used was from a local farm or community, and we were able to all share a little bit into the pot. I invite you to join the journey with us and uncover why we view cacao and fire cider as a superhero antidote. So, what is cacao anyways? Cacao, also known as Theobroma cocoa, is directly translated to meaning the fruit of the gods. And with a title like this, it also just so happens to be where what we know today of kokoleka or chocolate comes from. That's right, chocolate comes from a tree. These cacao trees, once planted, on average takes usually about 3 to 6 years to produce cacao pods, which grow all over the branches and trunk of the tree. When taking the cacao pod and cracking it open, inside you'll find a corn cob of beans that contains the secret ingredient to every favorite candy bar. When you notice these cacao beans, you'll notice they're covered in a white mucilaginous substance, which, in other words, is an ooey, gooey, sticky, glue-like substance. And once cracked open, you'll see that the bean is purple. After revealing these beans, there are many traditional ways for further preparation. but all consist of a fermentation process these guys will next undergo. Once completing the fermentation process, we meet a pivotal point for cacao and its health benefits. At this point of the fermented bean, it is the purest form tangible and has the highest amount of nutrients available. After this point of fermentation, we begin to enter the controversy on what is the difference between cacao versus cocoa. For many, it is truly in the eyes of the beholder. Now, I believe cacao is the purest form we have accessible. This means no further processing has been done to it. And cocoa has had some type of heat-added substance or sugars or added preservatives. This is where it gets to be really important to knowing the source of your ingredients and getting to know who you're interacting with and familiar with these products and medicines. Now, if you find cocoa powder that has been heated, it still has a lot of these nutrients available to you, but it's not going to have as much as the raw cacao powder. Generally, anything 70% or darker that you find with chocolate will still be beneficial to your health. This little tiny but mighty bean is one of the superfood of all foods, containing one of the highest sources of magnesium in nature, full of antioxidants, even 40 times more than a blueberry. Calcium, zinc, copper, and selenium, which many researchers are finding as a strong ally to fighting COVID today. Cacao can be used for over 100 different medicinal uses and has been for over thousands of years. These contain things like lessen agitation and stress, reduce asthma, give energy boosts. That's cleaner than coffee and not going to give you as much of the jitters, but still a similar brain stimulation. It can help reduce fever, clean the teeth, increase fertility, prevent cancer, reduce bronchitis, promote cardiovascular health, so good brain, or healthy heart, healthy brain. I also just recently learned that the leaves from a cacao tree were also used as an antiseptic for wounds. Have you ever wondered why chocolate just tastes so good when you eat it and makes you feel all the butterflies? Well, there's actually science to it. Inside cacao, it contains 4 bliss chemicals that make you feel love and peaceful and joy, and also help control the release of dopamine. It is said that in South American and Mesoamerican histories, this was looked at as a divine elixir that only the nobles and generals and high priests were allowed to drink. The only exception were if you went off to battle and you were a warrior, this was a gift to you and was one of the sacred warrior drinks. Or if you just so happened to be a human sacrifice to the gods themselves, you were allowed your one and only cacao drink. Cacao has also been said to help high blood pressure and reduce neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. While there are many different ways to use cacao, such as adding it into your daily smoothie, making banana bread, chocolate, there's also a ceremonial side to cacao that can be used, as cacao does open up your heart chakra, and through this, you can do further work in that realm if you'd like. I would like to share a story that I've encountered while using cacao during the COVID pandemic. Months ago, I found myself super sick and losing my taste buds, and I wasn't sure if that I actually had COVID myself. Trying many different natural ways, as we were all discouraged to go to the doctors unless you're in a super critical mode. I was sitting there losing my taste buds, and I started thinking, well, darn, if I can only taste one last thing before my taste buds go, what do I want it to be? And I figured chocolate was a sweet note to go. So I decided to make a cup of cacao, just using a cup of 3 to 4 tablespoons of cacao powder, adding in a little bit of coconut cream to make it sweet and some cinnamon. But I was also gifted some golden milk powder, which online you can find many different recipes to use. But I mixed a little bit of that into my cocoa, and that was one of the first things I was actually able to taste again, and also made me super happy. Who doesn't like a cup of hot cocoa while they're sick? I also experienced when going back home to the mainland, I had a couple of family members that did get COVID. And thankfully, through this project, they were sent a ton of awesome medicines, but they were fearful on how to use it. My granny even questioned, what, are you doing witchcraft? There's things like cat's claw and turkey tail all in this box, and she wouldn't even try it. So going home, I found this amazing box of medicines, and my family is struggling, but I didn't know how to make them not fearful of it. So what I started doing is I would prepare tea and cocoa every day. And every day I would take these tincture droppers and I'd put them straight up into my hot cocoa and put whipped cream on top and cinnamon and show them like, hey, this is safe, this is okay, and it tastes good. And through this, my granny, my 88-year-old grandmother, finally said, okay, and drank it with me. And now she's telling all of her friends about cat's claw. I also think this is a good way to not only get Granny to try something new, but if you have kids that you're having a hard time taking any cold medicine or things like that, this is a really good way to cover it up and share that kind medicine.